What's up, guys? So for those that tune in, or those that were tuned into my Instagram live story before, I'm going to do the Q&A on Facebook because people can then come back and actually have a look at the video once I've done it. Because on Instagram, once you're actually doing a live video, if somebody's logged on or joined in, they can watch it. But if anybody joins in late, they can't go back and see what you've already talked about, or if somebody misses it altogether, then they don't see it either. So I'm going to do it on here instead. And the first question that I need to go through is the effects of too much fiber. So the effect of too much fiber is nothing drastic, but in my experience anyway, if I have too much fiber, I get really bad bloat, so I bloat a lot more, and I actually get stomach cramps, which in regards to performance is obviously shit, because if you're in the gym, or if you're training for sport or whatever it is, and you've had too much fiber and you got really bad stomach cramps, then it's going to make it extremely uncomfortable, and your performance is obviously going to drop off a little bit. And outside performance, it's obviously just annoying if you have if you're bloated or if you got bad stomach pains. So too much fiber is, there can be too much of a good thing. So I would recommend with your fiber intake, I usually recommend about 15 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories consumed. So if you're eating 2,000 calories per day, you should be aiming for around 30 grams of fiber. And that's going to be enough. But if you're overshooting that by, you're getting in 60, 70 grams of fiber, then don't be surprised if you get a sore stomach and feel pretty shit and get like stomach cramps and stuff like that. The second thing, my friend Blake sent me this picture today that he saw on somebody's Instagram or Facebook or something like that. Had like a bit of a chart, how much exercise you need to do to burn off certain foods. So for example, I can't remember exactly what it said, but let's say it was 100 burpees to burn off half a can of Coke or a can of Coke or something like that. My opinion on this is that it's bullshit, because it's very similar to what I spoke about on my Instagram live video last night about how there's no such thing as good or bad foods, and there's no foods that are going to make you fat, and there's no foods that are going to make you lean or shredded or in really good shape. It comes down to your overall calorie intake. So if you drink a can of Coke, although it has got a lot of sugar in it, if that's in your moderate intake of sugar, and it's within your carbohydrate intake, and it's within your calorie intake, and you're still in a calorie deficit at the end of the day, then that's fine, because you're still in a calorie deficit. So you don't need to go and do 100 burpees or whatever that chart said to burn off that can of Coke. Another example might have been, you need to do the equivalent, I think I've seen once, maybe it was the equivalent of 10 laps of the MCG or something like that to burn off a Mars bar. Again, if the Mars bar fits within your calorie intake, then you do not need to stress at all. You're not going to gain weight. You're not going to put on fat by eating a certain food. There's no fats, there's no foods, even like a burger or pizza is not going to make you fat if it's within your calorie intake. Clemmy, how long to burn off a 6-pack of beer, mate? Well, I've seen you in the shed with me, old man, and it's usually more than a 6-pack, so it's going to take a little bit more than a few laps of the oval. But even still, if they fit within your calorie intake, then you got nothing to worry about. But as long as you are keeping a rough estimate of how many calories you're actually taking in, and then you don't go and eat a heap of shit after you do drink the beers, because then that's usually going to put you over your calorie limit. The next thing I want to talk about is, can you burn fat and build muscle at the same time? Now, there's a select number of people that can do this. Firstly, somebody that's just starting out in the gym, so like a newbie to the gym, someone that hasn't really trained before, may have a little bit of fat to lose. So they're going to be gaining strength and gaining muscle mass because they're doing strength training. But they're going to be losing body fat at the same time, because they're probably gone from relatively sedentary, where they're not burning or not expending any energy at all, to now expending energy. So they do have a very likely or high percent chance of burning fat and building muscle at the same time. Now, for someone like myself who's been training for X amount of years, like a fair few years now, the likelihood of me burning fat and building muscle at the same time is very slim. I might be able to build a little bit of muscle, and while I'm burning fat, but the likelihood of that is very low. The other type of person that can build muscle and lose fat at the same time is someone that's using pharmaceutical drugs, so something like steroids or growth hormone. That's why these guys can kind of look so big and get so big and stay lean at the same time. But for somebody that's got a good amount of training or lifting experience, so let's say intermediate to advanced lifter, it's extremely hard. I'm not going to say impossible, but extremely hard to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. So I usually recommend choosing one goal first and then going to the other. So for example, at the moment I'm in a gaining phase, so I'm eating more than I'm burning, with the hopes of gaining weight and gaining muscle. So I want to gain muscle at the moment. So I'm not worried about burning fat. Okay, I want to keep my body fat in a decent level. I want to keep it in check. So I'm not going to go too crazy on my calories. I'm going to keep my surplus relatively moderate. But my goal at the moment is to gain size. So that's what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on building muscle, putting on weight at a good rate. And if I put on a little bit of fat, then that's fine. When it comes to me getting in contest prep shape, then my goal will be to lose fat, okay, and maintain muscle. But I'm not trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, because I've got enough lifting experience now that it's going to be extremely hard for me to do, extremely difficult. As I said, it's not impossible, but really the only people that are going to do that build that muscle and lose fat at the same time is a newbie, so a beginner, someone that's just starting out and probably has a little bit of weight to lose in the first place, and hasn't really done any strength training or resistance training in the past, hypertrophy work. Or somebody that's on steroids, okay? Someone's using pharmaceutical drugs. Moving on to the next question, how to grow your Instagram. Now, this is obviously not for everybody. And to be perfectly honest, like I definitely don't have a huge following on Instagram. So I'm not really speaking from experience of being able to grow it to, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. But I do know how to actually grow your Instagram. And it comes down to putting out good content, good regular content, okay? Stuff that's going to help people, stuff that people want to see. Obviously, if you're just posting stuff that none of your followers actually want to see, or it's not giving them any help or any value, then there's really no reason why someone would follow you or like your photos, okay? So for starters, it needs to be something that people want to see and that's going to give them value, okay? Second thing is it needs to be consistent and regular. So if you're just posting once a week, then the likelihood of you growing your following on social media or Instagram, so it's not just Instagram, it might be YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever it is, the likelihood of that happening is very low if you're only posting every now and then. It needs to be consistent, needs to be good content, and it needs to provide people with value. And in the end of the day, guys, a huge following doesn't always mean, it's not always a good thing. Well, it is a good thing, but some people use it better than others, okay? There's a lot of people out there with huge followings just because of their name or because of whatever reason it may be. They don't actually provide anyone with value. I would rather have less followers but be able to reach more people, to actually help and interact more people, than have hundreds of thousands of followers and just be putting out shit content that doesn't help anybody. And that's what I aim to do with my Instagram and my social media. Next question is, how long should you be resting for? So I'll just give you a rough estimate. So for someone that's in hypertrophy phase, so trying to build muscle, lifting in a rep range anywhere from, let's say, 8 reps and above, I would recommend 60 to 90 seconds between sets. It does depend on which exercise you're doing, but that's a general recommendation. For anybody that wants to be getting stronger, so building on their strength, let's say 6 reps or below, even 7 reps or below, I would recommend anywhere from 90 seconds all the way up to a minute and a half all the way up to 5 minutes. And that's what a lot of people can't really get their head around. They feel like they need to have their heart rate up the whole time, otherwise they're not making progress, but it couldn't be further from the truth. I can't remember who said it, but there's some saying, or somebody said it at some stage, to get strong, you need to get used to sitting around. So for example, on one of my leg days, if I start with low rep sumo deadlifts or low rep squats, it might be sets of 3 to 5. So if my rep range is 3 to 5, then I'm going to be resting at least 3 minutes between sets. And that's not because I'm lazy or not because I want it to be easier, but it's because doing a compound lift like a squat or a deadlift with heavy weight and a low rep range is taxing not only on your muscles but your central nervous system. So you might feel good in your legs or whatever when you go to start your next set and you've only rested 60 to 90 seconds, but your central nervous system's not going to be ready to go, and neurally you're not going to be good to go. So you want to give yourself enough time in between strength training exercises in that 6 reps or below rep range to actually recover between sets, so you're getting quality reps and you're getting out a full set, and you're not just moving weight for the sake of moving weight. On the other hand, as I mentioned, for hypertrophy, when the rep range is a little higher and the weight is a little more moderate or lighter, then you can reduce the rest times. Some hypertrophy exercises I'm resting only 30 seconds, 45 seconds, depending on what the goal is, whether I'm trying to progressive overload or whether I'm just going for a pump. That's my recommendation. And power, even longer. Okay, so power is similar to strength. You want to be resting a long time because you're not going for muscle fatigue. Thanks, TT. You're not going for muscle fatigue on power. Okay, it's a neural adaptation that you're going for there. What have I got next? Should you cycle your pre-workouts? Yes. I'm going to say yes here. So in the end of the day, pre-workout really is just caffeine. And you've got other things in there as well that make their product, some supplement companies' products different than others, but in the end of the day, it's just caffeine. So if you're cycling off your pre-workout, but you're still drinking a lot of caffeine through coffee or something else, then you're really not cycling off. So you may as well just continue using your pre-workout. But general rule of thumb, if I have a pre-workout supplement, so let's say, for example, one of my favorites is the EHP Labs RP Max. So if I've got that and I finish the tub, I'll usually try and go a few weeks before I buy another one, if I buy another one. And I'll try and reduce my caffeine intake from coffee and whatnot, so I actually get a benefit of going off caffeine and then going back to it. Otherwise, like I said, if you're making up for the fact that you're not having pre-workout with other stuff like coffee, then you're really not getting any benefit of cycling off it. Last question before I finish up. How many calories below maintenance should you go for a cut? Just quickly, guys, if you do have any questions, then I feel as though the comments section and all that type of stuff is lagging a little bit with Facebook. It usually does. So if you have commented and I haven't seen it, I apologize. But if you've got any questions, chuck them in there now before I finish up and I'll try and answer them. But how many calories below maintenance for a cut? I always recommend starting at the higher end and then getting lower as you go through, only if you need to. So if my maintenance calorie intake is 3,000 calories per day, so that means I don't put on any weight or I don't lose any weight at 3,000, then I'll start my cut at around about 2,900 or even 2,800. So anywhere from 200 to 500 calories below maintenance is a good place to start. Anything more than that, then you're going to be risking losing muscle mass, and you're going to plateau a lot quicker, and you're going to be stuck a lot quicker once you get to the point where you do plateau. Because I used an example the other day on my Facebook, I think it was, starting a cut with a lot of cardio and very minimal calories, so drastic calorie reduction, is like starting a marathon in a sprint. As soon as you hit a wall, as soon as you hit a real bad plateau, you're stuffed because you've got nowhere to go. So for example, if you're doing a lot of cardio and you're not eating much calories at all, and you get stuck, so you start to plateau and you're just not losing fat anymore because your metabolism has adapted, then all that's really left for you to do is do more cardio or reduce calories even more. And in most cases, the best thing for you to do would be to get out of that calorie deficit and get out of that cut phase and build your metabolism before you try again. But most people won't do that. Most people want results fast, and they'll do drastic changes to get them. So, you got to take the smart approach. So I always say, give yourself more time to lose the fat, and you'll see better results over time. All right, that's it, guys. That's all I've got for tonight. I'm going to finish up here. So thanks for joining me, and